The biggest AI stories right now are not just about smarter models. They're about who has the compute to serve them, who gets to test them before release, and who controls what autonomous agents are allowed to do once they're inside real systems. Today we've got OpenAI changing the default ChatGPT experience, Anthropic turning more compute directly into higher Claude Code limits, the US government expanding pre-release testing with more frontier labs, Microsoft and ServiceNow pushing agent control planes, and Hugging Face trying to make robot behavior shareable like software. This is AI Now. AI Now tracks the decisions, releases, and research that move AI from demos into real systems. So let's get into it. First up, OpenAI says GPT 5.5 Instant is rolling out to all ChatGPT users and replacing GPT 5.3 Instant as the default model. According to OpenAI's official launch post, this is not just another optional model picker update. It changes what the average ChatGPT user gets by default, which often matters more than a premium model launch because it affects the broadest layer of daily usage. OpenAI says GPT 5.5 Instant brings major factuality improvements, more concise responses, stronger image and stem handling, and new memory source controls for personalization. That last part matters because personalization features get more useful only if users understand where the model is pulling context from. OpenAI is at least signaling that more explicit memory source controls are part of the product direction, not just model capability. The bigger signal is in the safety documentation. In its system card, OpenAI says GPT 5.5 Instant is treated as high capability in cybersecurity and in biological and chemical preparedness categories. That does not mean the product is unsafe by default, but it does mean OpenAI is saying even an instant tier model is now strong enough to require more serious preparedness framing. Why this matters. Default model upgrades now carry both UX consequences and safety consequences at mass market scale. What to watch next is whether users actually report lower hallucination rates, whether personalization controls are clear enough to trust, and whether enterprise admins get stronger control over memory sources. Next, Anthropic announced a SpaceX compute partnership and almost immediately turned that into a user-facing product change. According to Anthropic, it is doubling Claude Code's 5-hour rate limits for Pro, Max, Team, and seat-based enterprise plans. If you use coding agents for long sessions, that is a much more meaningful improvement than a vague promise of better performance sometime later. Anthropic also says the SpaceX agreement gives it access to more than 300 megawatts of capacity and over 220,000 NVIDIA GPUs within the month, using all compute capacity at SpaceX's Colossus 1 data center. Axios also reported on the deal. That is the key point here. Inference capacity is now product strategy. Better models do not help much if developers keep hitting caps halfway through an agentic coding workflow. So why does this matter beyond Anthropic? Because it shows the compute arms race surfacing directly in the product layer. More GPUs do not just improve training ambitions, they raise session limits, reduce friction, and make agents feel less like throttled demos. What to watch next is whether those higher limits stay stable during peak demand, and whether Anthropic can keep translating infrastructure wins into reliable developer experience rather than temporary promotional headroom. Third story, the US government is widening its frontier AI testing loop. NIST announced that CAISY, the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, signed new agreements on May 5, 2026, with Google DeepMind, Microsoft, and xAI. According to NIST, these agreements enable government evaluation of models before they are publicly available, along with post-deployment assessment and related research. That matters because pre-deployment evaluation is different from reacting after release. The agreements create a formal path for government evaluators to inspect frontier systems before public launch, and NIST says testing can also happen in classified environments. Axios framed this as part of a broader US move to ramp up frontier testing, even in an administration that is otherwise pushing AI acceleration. The reason to pay attention here is governance, not headlines. If pre-release testing becomes routine, frontier labs may have to build government evaluation windows into launch planning, similar to how security reviews or compliance reviews already affect shipping schedules. The open question is whether these remain voluntary arrangements or evolve into something closer to a de facto requirement through procurement rules, national security expectations, or future regulation. Fourth, the agent hype cycle is colliding with enterprise reality. Microsoft says Agent 365 is now generally available for commercial customers, and it is positioning the product as a control plane to observe, govern, and secure agents across local, SaaS, and cloud environments. That wording is important. The sales pitch is no longer just, "Here are agents." It is, "Here is the dashboard for everything those agents might touch." Then ServiceNow pushed the same category even further. According to ServiceNow's official release, its expanded AI control tower can discover, observe, govern, secure, and measure AI deployed across enterprise systems. The strongest concrete claim is that it can detect an agent operating beyond permissions and shut it down in real time. ServiceNow also tied this to governance, extending from desktops to data centers with NVIDIA. Why this matters? This is the agent-era version of Shadow IT. Enterprises are moving from pilots to systems that can access files, credentials, APIs, and workflows. Security teams want inventory, identity, least privilege, audit logs, and runtime blocking before they approve broad deployment. So agent control planes are becoming a product category of their own. What to watch next is whether these tools can actually govern third-party agents outside their native ecosystems, and whether customers trust kill switch and real-time shutdown claims once these systems are running in production. Last one. Hugging Face is trying to make robotics distribution look more like open-source software distribution. In a blog post and documentation update, Hugging Face says Reachy Mini now has an app store powered by Hugging Face Spaces with one-click installation. This is for its open-source desktop robot, and the framing is bigger than just a gadget update. Hugging Face says the Reachy Mini community has already shipped more than 200 apps from more than 150 creators, and the company describes nearly 10,000 units in the wild. The interesting part is the software model. Robot behaviors become forkable repos, and users can test apps in a browser simulator before installing them. So the contribution unit is not just a model checkpoint, it is an embodied behavior package. Why that matters is that it lowers the barrier between model builders, hobbyists, and robotics developers. If this works, physical world AI behavior becomes easier to remix, test, and distribute without needing a full specialist robotics team for every experiment. What to watch next is app quality, safety moderation, and whether Reachy Mini becomes a useful benchmark environment for embodied agents, rather than just a fun community platform. So the through line today is pretty clear. OpenAI is pushing stronger capability into the default consumer layer. Anthropic is showing that compute supply can become an immediate product advantage. The US government is getting more involved before frontier releases, not just after. Enterprises are buying control systems for agents, not just agents themselves. And open source AI is moving from model sharing into robot app distribution. That's the roundup. Subscribe for a concise daily read on what actually changed in AI. And next, watch whether these new agent controls become standard infrastructure or just another enterprise dashboard. See you next time.